Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I'm really blessed. So I'm going to start from the top. For all of my life, truly, I was a very curious kid, if you would. And I had this obsession with understanding the meaning and the purpose of life. What did it all mean? And truly, this stemmed from my desire to make a contribution and to impact others and really to help and serve. And like all of you, I strive to attain the sense of fulfillment in my life. My greatest education became the school of life. Or rather, in my case, the school of hard knocks, right? Those of us can attest to. And really, my syllabus, looking back, was chopped. Is it over?
Can you hear? Turn to your body behind it. Maybe you should turn up a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Just talk really loud.
I'll just talk really loud. So my syllabus was just chock full of lessons in pain, in suffering, in feeling lost, in getting lost, in being lost. And really, what all of this stemmed from was my lack of self-worth. And at the heart of it, my disconnect to a sense of self-love. So, as a result of my many, many years of painful lessons, I came to really learn a very important lesson. And when I learned this lesson, it brought me back to grace and flow. And as well, it started giving meaning and purpose to my life. And I'd like to share that with you today. But the thing about it is, it's not a single instance in time. What it is, this lesson was an alignment in mind, body, and soul. And it's its focal point, an integration of mind, body, and soul. And what I call our circle of communication. And I'll define this and go into it more in just a second. But before I do, in light of this, that lovely imagined song that we just played, I'd like for you to imagine, if you will, to be here with me. But not as Democrat or Republican, in light of the upcoming elections. Let's put all that aside because it creates polarity. Or not even as what we do, our profession. Because that also creates a lot of stress in these economic times. And not something even closer to home. Father, mother, son, daughter, grandma, and grandpa. There's sometimes a lot of expectations and responsibilities that come with that as well. So just put that all aside for a moment and be here. Imagine being here with me, first and foremost, as human beings. Open, expansive, and innocent. Imagine, if you will, this place. So be here with me. And listen to my words, and don't just listen to my words, but feel the words as a very experiential experience. So, the circle of communication, what is it? Well, imagine, if you will, 3 concentric circles. On the outermost layer, we have mind, and then inside we have body, and then the little circle inside is soul. So I'm going to start with mind as in mind, body, and soul. What is mind? It's mental, right? Our mental level. And what is the most obvious way that we communicate? Verbal communication, right? With the words we speak. Now, it would make no sense. I'm speaking English here because I gather you guys are, this is the spoken language, and for me to be most effective, I would be speaking to you, and for you to receive my message, I would speak English. Now, if I were to speak Mandarin, I gather most of you, if not all of you, would have no freaking clue what I was talking about. And they're like, what is she doing on stage? So it makes sense that I speak a language that we can all relate and understand. But at the heart of it, why is it that we choose to speak the words, to express the words that we say? Well, it's because of our thinking. Our thoughts, our repetitive thoughts, shaped the words we speak. And what this is really a culmination of the values we have, the beliefs that we have, and the experiences that we have. And when all of this culminates together, what we have is our perception of the world, our perception. And the thing is, the mind is so powerful that it is so good at finding evidence to support our perception of the world, whether we want it or not. One of my most loved favorite quotes is from a lady named Anais Nin, and she says that we don't see things as they are. No, we see things as we are. So I'd like to share a quick story to really drive home this point. There was a man, and he wanted to attain enlightenment. So naturally, he went to India, and he was met with a small boy. And the boy, he comes to the boy, is there in front of him, and he says, "Small boy, I will give you 1 rupee if you can tell me where God is." And the boy looks back at him and says, "Sir, I will give you 2 rupees if you can tell me where God isn't." Now, this is really an illustration in our perception. Are you the boy, or are you the man? Or are you somewhere in between, perhaps? And the really interesting thing about perception is that we can change it. We can look back at the conditions and circumstances of our lives and reinterpret it, reassign new meanings to it. So much so that these thoughts become anchored in our consciousness and they become strengthened in that truly science has shown that neurons that fire together will wire together. So it's every 6 months or so I am getting my checkup at the dentist, and the sign really illustrates what how our minds work. And it's a plaque up and you walk in and it says, "We don't need to brush all of our teeth. No, just the ones you want to keep." So really, this is how our thoughts work. So doesn't it make sense to think the thoughts that will shape the perception and therefore take the actions that we want to see and the thoughts that we want to keep? So on the next level, we have body, as in mind, body, soul. And on this level is our physiology, this body language, if you will. And what happens when the body speaks, it speaks from a more fundamental place. It becomes more instinctual how it speaks. And so let me give you an example. So if you were walking and you saw somebody there with a smile on their face, what message are they giving to you? Well, I'm open. I'm friendly. It's safe to speak to me. And so therefore you'll be more apt to walk up and say, "Hey, hi," introduce yourself. And in case you're a friend with a smile on their face, you're like, "Okay, well, we can have a conversation. This person's not in a bad mood, right?" So, but let's say if this person, however, had a scowl on their face. What does that immediately communicate to us as well as in terms of body language? Probably that they're closed off, that maybe they're not really wanting to engage in a conversation, and it's very extreme level that they could be dangerous, right? So naturally, we would not, in order to protect our own safety, not want to approach them. So it's really interesting that when the body speaks, our body language, what it speaks from is honesty. The body is honest with us. And so much so that even if words were uttered, we wouldn't believe it. We would listen to the body language. Let me give you an example. So someone said, "Hey, crying uncontrollably," and you come up and you ask them, "Are you okay?" And they're like, "Oh, my life is great. I'm so happy." And they're crying uncontrollably, and you can see and you can feel in their body language that is not the case. So when the body speaks, it speaks powerfully. And oftentimes, it will continue to speak to you until it grabs your attention. How? When we're thirsty. When we're hungry. Right? Our stomach will growl louder and louder until it grabs your attention. Or, in the case that many of us experience, pain. It speaks to us in pain. Sometimes physical, sometimes emotional. And when it speaks physical pain, well, how does it manifest this? Well, migraines, fibromyalgia, and running rampant in our society, cancer. When we don't listen to our body, it will speak loudly until it grabs our attention. And so much so that a few years back, my cousin, who was in his early 30s, just had his second child. And, generally he's a jovial guy and, very easygoing and, didn't really seem to have a whole lot of care in his life. And so one day, stress started to reach a head for him, and he listened and he paid attention. And he knew he needed to just rest. So he went home, stayed in his mom's house for some TLC, which he knew he needed. And his brother, who was also living in the same city, they were close, and so he would come by to visit him after work. And so he came home one day to his mom's house, and he went to put the keys in, and he walked into the bedroom looking for his brother, didn't see him, and then walked into the kitchen, and there his brother was. There my cousin was. He was lying flat on the ground. And what had happened just only minutes before, fortunately, was that my cousin took a kitchen knife and plunged it right into his chest and missed his heart by only an inch. Now, what would possess someone to do that? Well, they lost themselves. Their bodies spoke so loud. So I leave you. When was the last time that you paid attention to what your body had to say? When was the last time you listened to this form of communication and its purest honesty in the way it speaks to us? So on the last level, we have soul communication, as in mind, body, and soul. And so when the soul speaks, it speaks from a very profound level. And at this level, we are connected to love. And so oftentimes when we sense a degree of unfulfillment in life, we're really not connected to the soul communication, our purpose in life. And I'm going to share a story to really illustrate this point of how the soul communicates. And sometimes it's very subtle, but we'll know. So growing up, as I mentioned, I was, never felt smart enough, good enough, anything enough, you name it, that was me. And I wanted to be a medical doctor. And I didn't think I was smart enough. So fortunately, I got accepted to a PhD program for pharmacy, but I didn't finish that either. And at the time, I wanted to help people. So I thought the only way to help people was really direct contact via some sort of health profession. So I decided I'd get a job as a physical therapist aide. Why not? So I did. I got me a job in Los Angeles as an aide. And I was, I started there and I was learning a lot and I was doing a lot and still deciding whether or not this was meant for me. And one day, this man comes up, this black man with his son, about, probably 7 or 8, I gather. And what happened was the man was standing there with his son, and his son was kind of like bow-legged with his heel wouldn't touch the floor. And he was scared. His body language was riddled with the feelings of fear. And what had happened, I was standing afar and I could hear that what they were talking about. And essentially this boy, all his life, he had this condition where he couldn't play as a boy. He couldn't be, a normal boy. And his dad had taken him to so many doctors and so many neurologists, and yet they couldn't find a cure for his condition. So as a last resort, they decided that they would need to sever that nerve in order for his muscles to relax and be flat on the ground, in order for him to be a normal boy again. And as a last resort, they decided to bring him to this physical therapist that I was working for to really help him retrain those muscles. In that, again, muscles that fire together will wire together. And so we walked into the biofeedback room, and for those who don't know what that is, there are electrodes that hook up to parts of your body. You monitor the electrical current in the muscle. And so he hooked the boy up, and then he proceeded to walk out. And I was like, excuse me, you're the physical therapist, where are you going? And he looked at me and he said, I want you to work on the boy. And I said, okay, I have no freaking clue what I'm doing, but sure. I didn't say that out loud, but in my mind, that's what I was thinking. And so the boy was sitting there in a chair, and I kind of just sat right next to him on the floor. And what had happened for the first 10, 15 minutes was every time I would push his knee down, he'd pop up. I push it down, it'd pop up. I push it down, it'd pop up. I push it down, it'd pop up. It was like a whack-a-mole. I push it down, it'd pop up. And so I was like, what do I do? I don't know what to do. I don't have the training. What the hell? Why did he leave me here with this boy? And it was in that moment that I got quiet. And when I got quiet, there was an overwhelming voice, a something that started to talk to me. And it felt as though something was starting to walk through me. And what it told me to do was this. It says, this boy is scared. He is terrified. You need to make him feel safe. You need to extend him love. He's not known that, and you need to do that. Ask him questions about his life. And as you do, just gently take your forearm and press it on his knee so that he can, you can be engaging him, but he's going to be relaxed at the same time. And so I did. I started firing all the questions. I was like, oh, how old are you? What's your favorite color? What's your ice cream? What's your shoe size? Do you have any siblings? What are they like? What are their hair color? Firing questions at him. Until long last, lo and behold, his knees started laying his heels flat on the floor. And I could feel it because I couldn't push anymore. And I was like, oh my God. Wow. I kind of did it. But it wasn't enough. And his voice came back and it told me, it said to just gently move your elbow up as though he could feel, your hand touching, but without putting any pressure. And engage him, continue to engage him so that he doesn't know, and let his muscles and the brain retrain itself so that it's fully relaxed on its own. And so I did, and we sat there for another 10-15 minutes doing just that. And as I was doing this, I felt my heart just opening up, and I felt a whole just sense of great purpose and meaning just coming back right inside of me. And it was amazing. His voice came up again. He said, "You're ready. Come on, get the boy up and get him to walk with you." And so I did. We picked one end of the hallway, and I was holding his hand like this, and he was, kind of like this, right? And I said, "Don't worry, just follow my steps, and we'll do this together." So he was doing this, and his knees would pop up, and I would kind of adjust them a little bit, and then before we knew it, he was, it kind of became normal by the time we reached this end. It was so much better. It was a vast improvement. So we did it again, and this time around, I didn't hold his hand, but I continued to guide him and give him the same degree of safety that he needed at first. And so we did, and his gait started becoming a little bit more normal, And then I knew it was time. We were going to run. So I said, "Come on, run. We can do it." So I started him off. And he was kind of like running, and lo and behold, he was actually running. And he saw his dad at the other end of the hallway, and his dad was standing there, overjoyed. And I knew exactly what his dad was thinking. He was thinking, "Oh my God, my son can be a normal boy again." And so the boy ran to his father, and just put his arms around him and hugged him so tight. And I could see tears just coming down his face. Truly, he has never seen his boy play and just be in this moment and be a boy. And in this moment, which I was just like beside myself, I had no idea what to make of it. And so when they left, my boss, I came over to him and I asked him, I said, "Okay, what just happened there?" And he said, "Are you kidding me?" And I said, "I don't know." He's like, "I have practiced 30 years of physical therapy, and I have never seen that happen in my entire life. That was a miracle." And I looked at him and I said, "It was?" And it was in that moment that I connected to that sense of purpose and meaning in my life and the gifts that I was given. And but I knew that moment alone did not align with mind, body, and soul. I knew it from this moment it was going to be a process, a journey that I needed to take. In really honing those skills and anchoring it down. So I read all the books I could read, I practiced all the tools I could get, I learned all the techniques. And I hated school, but boy, was I a disciplined student. I was excited, I was frustrated, but I was the most disciplined student. And one day, I was sitting there, and I experienced nothing. I heard nothing. And in this moment, I discovered my breath. And at that point, I knew that this breath was that integral focal point within these 3 concentric circles that bridged that alignment between mind, body, and soul. So why, you may ask? Well, the thing about the breath is there's a lot of traditions, the Taoist tradition as well as the Indian tradition. They believe that if you can control your breath, you can control the activities of your mind. And so once I was connected to this breath, I started realizing that and in the slowness of my breath and this conscious breathing, the thoughts just kind of was like more as a background than anything. And so my focus became very clear. And as it became clear, my muscles started relaxing and my body started relaxing. And when it is, all that oxygen that you're breathing in very purposefully starts getting, kind of distributed to the rest of your body and deep down into the cells. And as we do that, then what happens is our soul starts to speak to us. It becomes clear. And it speaks from a very clear voice of love. Love for what it is we want to do for ourselves and for others. And I realized at this moment that I started falling in love with life. And it was really interesting because at that moment, my heart just shattered open. And spontaneously, I traded this ever elusive need to understand. Just really for a clear intentions to see. I'm going to say that again. I traded this ever elusive need to understand for this clear intention to just see. And at that time, whether it was inner peace, enlightenment, fulfillment, joy, or just some rest, I started feeling that no longer was I pushing for these things, but I started getting pulled towards them, and that I was becoming the person that I was looking for. And so my journey came full circle. I started from love to seeking love to seeing with love. And at this moment, I was reminded that it was always inside of me. And truly, love is humanity's most effective and highest expression of communication. So you may be wondering, well, great, shoot, how do I get proficient in this language of, this expression? And truly, there is no simple answer, but the answer is yes, it's a simple thing to do. Practice. We practice we constantly practice and have a disciplined practice until we become this embodiment of this communication. And I like to wrap up with a quick story. So Pablo Picasso, those of you who have heard the story, he was sitting there having lunch one day, and he was doodling on a napkin, and this woman sees that. In 5 minutes, he's done with his drawing. And the woman comes up and she says, "Sir, how much for the napkin?" And he says, 20,000. And she said, "But sir, it only took you 5 minutes." And he looked at her and he said, "No, madame, it took me my whole life." So Pablo Picasso became masterful at expressing what was already within him. So can you imagine a world when we are fully expressed? And I believe there's greatness in all of us. So I ask you, what can you express inside of you? Thank you.